Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters Podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today. Phil Garrigan on the podcast. He's been on a couple of times. And Merseyside, I think, is one of the only services where they still make their recruits run everywhere.
Yeah.
And I said to him, like, oh, how do you justify that? You know, when you sat with all your other chiefs and they're talking about it, and some people would go, oh, that's unnecessary and that's bee stings and that's, too much of a back to the old days stuff. And I disagree entirely. I think this new recruit doesn't have context. They don't know why we're doing all this stuff. They've not been anywhere, and I mean, they might have joined at 30. They've had a job. Some of them have joined when they're bloody 18, but some of them have had a job. They're an adult. You treat them with respect and all that jazz, but they've no context for the importance and the costs of getting stuff wrong. And also with a lot of training centres, losing money or getting smaller or just becoming a bit tired, we can't do as realistic training in some places as we once could. Mm-hmm. The Fire Service College has changed hands, so it's not as utilised nationally. They do a lot of international training there, so a lot of fire and rescue services just train their own firefighters now, and that is done good and bad in different places. I often think about, it's called the Matthew Principle, where the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. That's the Matthew Principle. Yeah. And I think about this for fire services where, Merseyside or Cheshire or Lancashire or Manchester, with massive training facilities, they're still going to be able to train firefighters really well with lots of resources and all that sort. I was over in Manchester again recently, and they've got 80 people in their training department. That's just fucking mad.
Wow. Yeah.
And 10 of them are admin or, admin support, whatever you call them. 70 operational people in their training department. I think
that's a lot of investment. That's good.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But I'm like, if you're a little shire brigade from the arse end of nowhere, how do you give that realism to your firefighters? And if you don't at least embed a foundational work ethic, then you're going to set them up for fail, and they might hurt themselves. They genuinely might hurt themselves. So, like, how do you balance that in your head? If you started your own brand new, someone calls you out to wherever, they are sending nowhere, they need someone to run their training department. How long? I'm asking you the impossible question here. How long is training? Because even like we were talking about building collapse, I don't think we teach building construction a lot across the UK.
Yeah, no, we don't.
And mate, think about the latest 2 fatalities that we've had. We've just had one in Manchester, building collapse. We had 2 firefighters in Oxfordshire. Arguably was a door collapse, massive hangar door, but nonetheless, and I'm not for one second saying these firefighters were stupid or they didn't know building construction, but I'm sure some of the national operational learning and debriefs will go, well, how much are we teaching building construction anymore? Are we mandating this? A lot of people don't have to do IFEs anymore. I think there's probably 1 or 2 PowerPoints they may or may not get in their training about building construction and signs of collapse. Like, what's some of the things you would include? What should we do more of? What should we do less of? What would you keep doing? What would you stop doing? And don't worry about getting it perfect. We're not gonna hold you accountable to this, but just as an exploratory conversation.
Do you know there was an element when I joined, like 30 years ago, there's an element where the old boy was right, the old sweat, who had experienced it all, and there was a pecking order in the fire service. If you were new, you knew nothing, and that was it.
Yeah.
And then it's as you spend more time, the old boy, is the old sweat and teaches the young crews.
Yep.
Now I think there's times I've seen that stopped. It wasn't perfect. There was plenty of, there's nothing to say that person had 25 years in was knew everything.
They might have had 1 year of experience 25 times.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I'd say on the whole, There's, if you get the right person, the experienced firefighter has got a lot of knowledge and a lot of stuff to pass down. It did seem that that stopped. That's like, no, that's the old ways. We're not listening to that now. And I think there's just an acceptance that, I think we mentioned it before. There's people who have never done the job now are saying how it should be done. And it's like,
Hey,
this is the
there's watch managers and station managers have never worn in an operational fire.
And they've to me, firefighting, whether it's just my particular learning style, but it's experiential. I've learned
kinesthetic learners,
doing it.
People that are drawn to the fire service. We're practical learners. Want to see and do with our hands.
Yeah, that we're practical people. And the person that's done the most, that's probably learned the most. And again, I'm not saying that's everyone, but on the majority, the best instructors I had are the people that lived it and done it and spent years doing it. And they're the people you'd listen to. And I think I've seen it in our brigade where there's heads of department now who've come in and got there through rank rather than experience or knowledge or anything like that.
They're really good at interviews and exams.
Yeah. And then decided, well, you've got to be open to change. We're going to do it this way, and this is the way it should be done now.
Yeah, and when you oppose that, you're just seen as lack of innovation. Yeah. Maybe you're toxic. Yeah. Oh, well, you're just one of the old nepotistic, racist, misogynistic old boys. And you're like, whoa. Steady.
No, I'm passionate about the job.
Yeah.
And I want it done right, and I know how it's done right.
Yeah.
And you're not doing it right.
And some of that stuff you can't write down. Some of it is because it's like the old Mike Tyson, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face. Like Absolutely. So many of our policies and procedures don't survive first contact. They just fucking don't. Completely. And ISAR is the most perfect example of that.
Absolutely. I think that's the issue. It's more to bear in ISAR. It's completely obvious in ISAR that there's so many factors involved that you can't train for them. You've got to be prepared. You know how it should be done.
Yeah.
You know how all the systems go in place. You know how all the equipment works. But when none of it's there and you haven't got that equipment, and you've still got to do something. Let's adapt.
Yeah.
Well,
but Jim, in my service, we need to have 11 hours of stand down time now before we. Right. Yeah, that's not going to fucking work.
Yeah, you might not get a chance.
Yeah, that's just not. We're not doing that here. Okay. Well, can I contact my union rep? Sorry. No. Right. Who the fuck invited you?
Yeah.
Who's let this person in? Please, someone stand up and reckon what's going on. This episode is brought to you in partnership with Godiva Limited. Godiva is one of the world's leading providers of specialist equipment for emergency services market. Godiva produces a comprehensive range of fire pumps, including vehicle-mounted, portable, and their cutting-edge integrated total water flow control system, SAMFlows. I've been using Godiva my entire career as a reliable pump on the fire ground. It is such a crucial element of a successful firefighting team that you want to empower your crews with the very best, reliable, quality product. Reach out to our partners by checking the notes in the podcast. Now back to the show.
I've been fortunate to be in some really quite high-performing teams. And it's the sum of the parts. It's the people with the right attitude. And when people start saying things like that, it's like you're in the wrong team.
Yeah.
Really. There's plenty of teams for you to go into.
Yeah.
But it's just not this one with us now, because we don't want that.
No.
We're going to be the best you can be,
So you did 5 years in the. In fact, no, I'm jumping on. I'm interrupting you. My ADHD is annoying everybody. What else? So building construction, we should do a bit more of that. Is there anything that you think, if we're horizon scanning about what's really expected of a firefighter now, is there anything we're not doing enough of, do you think? And this is not saying that training schools get a bad rap. I was in training school for a number of years. And no matter what you do, you'll get email every week or a phone call from a friend on the trucks going, mate, you haven't shown them this. Like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? What are you even teaching there?
Right. There's always going to be things missed, and it's up to the watches to pick them up.
Okay.
Really. And I think, it's like it's my 17 weeks training. I still came out with the watch teaching me loads of stuff. Um, you're never going to be able to avoid that. I was learning about the fire service up until the day before I retired. So you'll never know it all. So it's very easy to put that on training school, but then you're losing the ownership of it's the watch now. The training school got you started. Now it's the watch to teach them how to do it, and then it comes back to that. It's the experienced firefighters now that can put it into real world scenarios and real incidents.
I love that you said you were still learning about it up until you retired, because you've got to have, I think the best ones have that eternal, student sort of mindset. Someone said to me, I forget who the quote's from, but they were like, as my island of knowledge increased, so did my shore of ignorance. Do you know what I mean? Because they're like, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. You become acutely aware of your vast ignorance because when you're in teams like you operate in and I was in, and even with the podcast going all around the world or whatever, you realize there's so many different ways of doing stuff. So many different equipment, so many different policies and procedures, risk appetites in different services, budgets, specialisms that your own organization doesn't have capacity for. But you only know that when you start traveling around a little bit and start lifting your head out of, my brigade is the center of the universe. No, it's not. It's the same way that your station is not the center of the universe. You should move stations. You should move watches, because you're never going to meet Jim. You're never going to meet that other person, that great firefighter that's on Blue Watch wherever. We can get stuck in our little comfort zones, can't we? Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And it's easily done. And then the danger is when you think you know it all and you think you're comfortable with it, and you're not listening to other people. And there's
anyone that self-proclaims to be a subject matter expert, I'm always like, no. That's a red flag. I saw as a load of subject matter enthusiasts. That's how I would always. That's an SME. They're a subject matter enthusiast. We're all students with different levels of experience, aren't we? Everyone should be a student still. You know what I mean? They always say the expert in some services is the person that knows one extra thing than anybody else, and they just hoard that knowledge and don't like sharing it because they're seen as the expert. I'm like, well, no, that's ridiculous. But I get why people do it. But so you spent 5 years in training school?
Yeah, 5 years.
Why did you choose to move out? Well, give me the pros and cons of being in training school.
Training school was brilliant for me because all I was doing was rope rescue and water rescue, and powerboats. So it was every day I was playing, and it seemed that at the end of each year, I'd normally lose about 3 weeks leave. By the end of the year, just I hadn't got it in, or I wasn't taking rotas, and I'd be like, I'd rather come in. I'd rather come in and do what we had planned. So it was ace. It was great. But I've always been operational. I love responding to operational incidents. There's always, even when I was running training, there's always a disconnect between a training scenario and an operational scenario. You can't recreate, you can train and try and make it as realistic as possible, but it's never the same. And I think I just, after 5 years, the technical rescue unit was set up. I just wanted to get back out ops. I felt like I was becoming that person. There's more, I could understand training perfectly, but I'm losing sight of actually going to incidents. So I took the decision. I went back to being a firefighter again. I was a watch commander at training school. And it was even offered, said we can put you through the process and you can go out a watch commander. But I was really adamant that I went in as a firefighter. I'm going back out as a firefighter. I didn't want to miss the ranks. And I just wanted to get back out on the trucks and putting out fires again. And I went back to being a firefighter at Northfield. I was rusty. I was just concentrating on the specialist stuff. I was rusty at core firefighting.
That's the fundamental, is that you've got to have that self-awareness to say, absolutely. I think of losing. I think there's a lot to be said for like part-time instructors, people that maintain the CPD, but still having that time on the trucks and still having that time in training, because it's much more authentic and relatable for the firefighters as well when they see someone that's still actually doing the thing.
Definitely. That's the best training ground in the world, is the fire ground.
It is beyond a privilege to be able to bring the Firefights podcast to you, and we are so grateful for every single person that supports, listens, shares, and follows our journey. But here's the honest truth. It takes a colossal amount of time and work to keep the podcast going. And to help us keep doing it, create more, reach more guests internationally, and make the podcast sustainable, we're asking for you to help. And to do this, we've set up a Patreon page. Now, by joining this, you'll not only support the future of the podcast, but also gain access to exclusive benefits. Now, if you've ever wanted to meet a member of the podcast, buy us a beer, buy us a coffee, and you think anything you've ever listened to on the podcast has been worth £3, that's basically what we're asking you for. By joining our Patreon community, you will get access to every single full episode archive we have ever made. Now, hundreds and hundreds of key documents that we've got in there on fire behavior, firefighter health, cancer risks, instant debriefs, and so much more. So if you feel like you want to join the Patreon crew and help us make this possible, head to patreon.com/TFFPC or check the link in any episode podcast notes. So let's get back into some of the experiences and some of the deployments and some of the sort of takeaways, whether it be operationally, physically, mentally, from some of the stuff you've been over to. So 2011, you had the New Zealand earthquake, didn't you?
Yeah, that's right. We were deployed out to New Zealand. I think that was a lot different from other deployments that ISAR had. Firstly, because we deployed into a fully developed country. That had all the resources available. We had USAR teams available, and a number of classified USAR teams a lot closer to us. But we deployed out. We knew what job we were going to before we even left the UK. So we were told we're going to the PGC building, and it was a very complex partial collapse building of I think it was a 5-story office block that had tent collapsed around a central staircase and lift shaft. So the two ends had dropped. The central lift shaft stayed intact, and then it leaned right over. So there's loads of potential collapse left in it. They think how the top floors were connected to the lift shaft was the only thing that was keeping it from all going.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we had this information, before we even left. So we were able to gather a load of intelligence and start looking at it before we even flew out.
So that was a full heavy deployment, wasn't it?
It was a full heavy deployment, yeah. So the whole team went.
So that's 70 something.
Yeah, 76.
76 operators.
I think it is, yeah. Although we didn't take dogs because we knew we were going to work on this one site. So and it was incredibly complex, one site only. And the New Zealand team had been through it. There'd been a number of live rescues. Then the Australian team had been through it, and then they all come away and literally said, "That's right. There's no one alive in there. That's too dangerous." And on reputation, they said, "We'll leave that to the UK team. We'll get which again, it's nice to be thought of like that they actually specifically requested us to go." And the brief was it was termination by total debris removal. There was still a number of people missing. I think there was 13 people still missing. And our job was to just delaminate the whole building.
Jesus.
So it was different. There was none of this. The ASR was done in Solihull Fire Station, in West Midlands. It was all perfectly set up for us. And when we got there, we'd split into, we were going to be working around the clock. So the base of operations was set up, the command support was set up, the logistics was set up as any deployment. But we just knew we were going to this one site and we were going to be there, for a protracted period. So it was, and it was, I was able, we'd set up a remote command unit on site, and it's how I imagine a big USAR job in the UK would go. So all the control measures were in. all the admin was all in place. But I was able to get involved in the USAR side.
Nice.
I'm fair, really.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I'd attached myself to some of the USAR teams and got involved. And it was we were working. I mean, the whole way we worked was with heavy plant.
Mhm.
We had a couple of contractors on site with JCBs with big pincer arms on them that took the building down. And literally, these guys do it day in, day out.
Yeah.
So all the lifting and moving was out the window. You just had to put your hand on a big lump of concrete, and it was just lifted off
Yeah.
and put where you wanted it to be. And we were at times operating from a cage suspended from a crane.
Wow.
So especially in the early stages when there was potential collapse, there was loads of
Mhm.
potential collapse. So it was safer that we're going to have fall arrest equipment and be clipped onto a cage and work above it. And if the building did fall, it fell away from us and we'd stay where we were.
Wow.
So so it was just we had every resource
Surreal.
available.
Yeah.
So and it came. The method of working, it was taken apart so methodically from the top down, where we were actually shipping in rubble to build ramps so that the machines could get onto the top of a safe
Mhm.
pile next to the building and start taking it apart.
Mm.
So it was, as far as real world urban search and rescue techniques, it was great for that. It took us 8 days, and literally we'd taken the building from one side of the road to the other, sifted through it, and then moved it back again.
Wow.
And it was, I think we found all 13 people. There was no live rescues. It was
No.
body recovery only.
Yeah, body recovery only, but still you want to factor for that. You don't want to start pulling something away with a massive piece of machinery that
Yeah.
could very quickly and easily rip a body in two.
It was done methodically. So it was done anytime a machine was working, it was surrounded by us
Yeah.
on the rubble pile, literally saying which bits we want taken off and having a
Mhm.
look. What was really quite, there's a few things that really bit in and got home. And we had two JCB operators, and one of them, his sister-in-law was in that building, like she was missing.
Christ.
And so he was like, they had these two proper roughneck demolition experts,
Mhm.
but he was like, I'm staying here to get me sister-in-law out.
Mm.
And he said, and I can remember talking to him and asking him, God, what's that? I can't imagine what that must be like. And he said, well, you know what? Every now and then I have to go and have a cry, and my mate comes and gives me a hug, and we have 10 minutes, we have a moment, but then we've still got a job to do. We'll go back on it.
Mhm.
And I was like, that was really quite moving.
Did he find her?
Yeah, we found everyone, but then they were experts at pulling the job apart. They
Mhm.
don't get involved they don't need to see a body
The
recovered.
bodies. Yeah.
So the spotters would remove the rubble, and when there was a hint of a body, and pretty much 9 times out of 10, more than that, it was the smell first.
Okay.
You'd move something, and then you get,
Yeah.
it was quite warm. It was a few days in, after a week. So you get, when we're coming close to a body, we're going to remove the plant operators now, and then it becomes just ISAR personnel with,
Yeah.
USAR techniques.
Yeah.
We'll dig the body out, and then we'll go through the disaster victims identification processes and record. And in all honesty, it was not the best deployment. Mentally, it was because there was no happy endings.
No.
I was desperate to find someone alive, and we just seemed to be pulling out dead body after dead body.
Is there an element of solace in that, though?
Do you know?
Because you say there's no happy ending, but you've been able to give the deceased back to a family.
I think I had a lot of issues after New Zealand. I'll talk about them in a bit if you want me to. I'm perfectly happy
absolutely.
to.
Yeah.
But I didn't. I come away for years thinking that deployment was just negative for me. It was a failure. We got, we didn't save anyone.
Okay.
It wasn't until 2 years ago we lost Ian Hughes off my station, a guy I've known for 20 years, an absolute lovely man. I've known him inside and outside the job. He was in the ISAR team for a short while.
Mm-hmm.
We lost him when he was attempting to swim the English Channel.
Yeah, I remember reading
Yeah,
about
and
that. That
he
was
was missing.
Jesus Christ.
It was horrible. And he was missing for a number of days. And I can distinctly remember when I got the phone call to say they found him. And I can distinctly remember how relieved it made me feel. And then immediately that took me back to, what we'd done in New Zealand had value. I didn't realise it until 2 years ago, in all honesty, what we done in New Zealand. And again, mate, it did affect me, and like I say, I'm happy to talk about it, but I might get upset if I'm honest.
That's okay.
And it taught me an awful lot. It taught me a lot about mental health, and how powerful it is, and how much we've got to be aware of it. If I'm honest,
But isn't it something sad about the fact that you almost have to go through something like that to be able to relate to it? It's very difficult when people give trim and mental health advice and stuff like that, because certainly for firefighters, we almost want to hear it from a place of authenticity, which is kind of harsh because it alienates some of the experts who have maybe done a lot of study and research and can genuinely help.
Yeah.
And really they want to hear it from Jim, or they want to hear it from, but it's puts a big toll on people like you that have to relay and repeat that information, because you kind of, when I've done stuff in that sector before, it's a bit like someone brings you into their house and they go, hey, do you want to come down into the cellar? I'd like to show you something. And you almost have to mentally descend and travel into that place with them in order for them to share it with you. And it's very heavy work to be with that person, to hold space with that person whilst they try and talk through that thing. Because I remember reading about Ian's, he was a crew manager, wasn't he?
He was,
and he had a family. He went missing he got into the French waters. Yeah. And it was because it was the French and the Belgium that went to try and find the rescue. Yeah. Wasn't it? He had a family. Yeah. He had family as well, didn't he?
He did. Yeah. He had a wife and 2 small kids.
Fuck.
I know. It was horrible. It was horrible when it happened, but it really did. It's so important to get that, to find that person. I hated the thought that he was lost at sea.
There's something so, like we said about water rescue before, something is so painfully, powerful and intimidating and scary and mysterious about being lost in open water. Yeah. Because he was in for like 11, 12 hours. He was in the water before he was lost, wasn't he?
He was. So I think, he got to about 19 hours into the swim. And he went under and then wasn't seen for a few days. And it was a horrible period. Yeah. But I just, and that, it was only then, like over 10 years later, that I got the value of what we done. Bringing, a person's remains home means so much, to family and friends. But at the time, after New Zealand, it was a massive, massive shock to me. Because I was so confident it wouldn't affect me. I've never had a history of any mental health issues. There's none in the family. I've never been around it. I had a real stable family life. I was really loving my job. I was fit and healthy, and I'd had input, probably not as much as what there is today. But I was just so shocked of how it affected me. And I do look back. I look back now. And I think a lot of it did have a lot to do with my start point at going on that deployment. And there was some things that were different in me rather than the incident. And I think that's how I'll always say that the way to look at, you know, critical incident stress is look at the person before the incident rather than how bad the incident was.
Okay.
And I do think that there was, I mean, I was at the time, I had young kids, was a massive factor of how much I loved them and how vulnerable I was. And it's like, I've been hard as nails, coped with anything before. But then I did feel really vulnerable having two small kids.
Mm.
Uh, and my brother-in-law, who I was really close to, I'd done a number of Romania trips, was terminally ill at the time. And it was like, and that was like, I deployed on that. And I think I was in a very low point.
Okay.
And I think I was surrounded in New Zealand. You are surrounded by death and destruction. It's a job. You know, the bizarre thing with ISAR is you're taken out of a normal setting and then instantly you're thrown into this horrible, worst possible environment in the world. And then you're pulled straight out of it and dropped straight back into a
Mm.
normal environment again, you know, which
Mm.
takes an awful lot of adaptation. But I distinctively remember New Zealand. We had a horrible job when we found three people were sort of like crushed together. And it was in a confined space. We had to crawl into it, you know. And we crawled in. I was working with the Scottish team, and Dave Murdoch was the medic, and who, again, another
Dave.
legend
Yeah.
in my eyes. And we were having to pull them apart, and it was confined space, and you were stuck in this small hole crawling over them. And it was just horrific. It was horrible. But I can still remember, I mean, it was extraction by amputation, sort of in the end. And we had to try and work out whose bits were who and pull them apart. It was just this horrible scene. But the thing that really got me was there was a woman's hand that had the same wedding ring as my wife, you know, and it got in there. And I knew at the time that's really going to affect me. That's horrid. And then it just seemed that coming back from that, that was always there. And it's like anytime I saw the ring, I was immediately back in that situation. And not just that one, all the others. We had an aftershock there that I thought I was going to die at one point. And it's just like everything. It was horrible. And so I just ignored it. So I just went running. Um, and I knew something was wrong, but I was able, I'd be running at like 3 o'clock in the morning. I'd go out and do a 10-mile run.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I couldn't sleep, do a 10-mile run, I'd feel better. I'd get by. And I think probably over about 5 years, 5, 6 years, I'd done a bunch of marathons. I was just one after another. I've
Mm-hmm.
got to keep running. I've got to do that. It was my coping mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I wasn't dealing with anything. I'd hated the thought that there was something wrong with me. You know, to
Yeah.
my ego, my sort of male bullshit sort of ethos was, no, I'm tough. I'm fine. My wife knew it. My work mates knew it, but I just was in complete denial. And it wasn't until I got injured at work and couldn't run that everything just,
Mm.
you know, as soon as that was taken away, everything fell apart. And I had to get help, which again, our ethos is not to ask for help, isn't it? I'm a,
Yeah.
you know,
Hitting that big red
you know,
HR button or mental health button.
yeah, I'm a typical rugby player. I'll just play on through injury and
Yeah.
you know, I'm not Earth. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine.
Uh,
Um, and I will say it's the big learning curve. Like, you know, I'll gloss over a lot of what happened then, but I think that I've come out the other end feeling stronger. You know, I went through treatments. I had to go on antidepressants. I had a load of counselling, but the first step was I had to talk to my mate. You know,
okay.
it was I had to admit to my peers, people I loved and respected, that I'm not doing very well. You
And
know, and it was
how did you use that? How did that materialize in
it.
words? What did you
I,
say to them? How did you do it?
I pretty much like that. Do you know what? I'm not doing very well. I've got a few problems. Um, I couldn't even like that. When I described that incident about in New Zealand, I couldn't even think of that without falling apart. Even in counselling, I couldn't even try to discuss some of that stuff. You know, it really did hit me.
As in,
Uh,
what, you would break into tears, you
I
would
just
get
couldn't.
angry, or
Yeah, I'd be back there again, surrounded by death and destruction, and under a building where I'd have to shock it, and I thought I was going to die, and just and I'd just stop and wouldn't do it.
okay.
And it did. I had to go through a round of EMDR treatment, which is designed for PTSD,
Hmm.
and it really helped me. And the support of family and friends, people around, the support I got from work was amazing. To be honest, once I'd admitted it and I'd taken responsibility that I'm going to start getting help, the support was all there. And I do
How
feel,
did your partner cope with it?
the poor Julie, my wife, she knew, she kept telling me, but I'd be getting angry, saying I'm fine, I'm absolutely fine. She really stuck by me.
Do you think
I,
she was going to leave you?
I, I just my mindset at the time was I was convinced everyone around me was going to die, and I was just focused on I couldn't be happy. I
Okay.
I was going to work. I was still going to work. I was still functioning, but just hadn't. It robbed the happiest years of my life when my kids were little because
I was about
I
to
couldn't
say,
allow me. Yeah,
kids,
I remember
kids are very
I had a
astute. They notice those
you
things.
know
Well, they don't know how to
I had
find the words to say something, but
yeah, but I just couldn't allow myself to be happy. I had a proper shaking wobble whilst picking the kids up from preschool. And it was about 2 days after coming back from New Zealand. And
Mhm.
I was in a queue picking my kids up, and I was like, there was a CTV building over in New Zealand that completely collapsed and burned for 5 days. And there was a preschool at the bottom, and I remember going to the site and visiting it and doing an assessment. We didn't work on it. But there was one day when family members came in and they were stood outside the ring fence barrier. And it was like all the parents, waiting for the kids, and it was like they're
Mm.
not coming out of there. They're coming out as ash, I'm afraid. And then it was like I was in the queue outside my preschool with my kids, and I just had this massive the ground just to me in my head, everything just started going, and the ground started shaking and everything. Um, just that connection
Mm.
of everything that happened over there, and I could just 100% connect it to everything over here. And it took
How would you describe depression? What's the difference between low mood and depression? You said
oh,
you struggled with depression.
yeah, time. I think I was just consistently. There's nothing could get me out of it, and it didn't last a week and last a month. It lasted years, And I was soldiering on. And it's like any happy thought that came into my head was immediately battered down by something horrible. Anytime I enjoyed being with my kids, it's like they could all die. They could all get something horrible could happen. Something horrible was going to happen to you. Something horrible was going to happen to them. And it's like
Mhm.
any thought of happiness was immediately clubbed down by a tragic, horrible scenario in my head.
Did
Like,
you ever consider killing yourself?
no, I didn't, and I
Because
don't
some people
think
make that assumption that
they
depression
do.
leads to suicidal
But
ideation or
no,
suicide.
and it can,
Yeah, it
and
can. Yeah.
it certainly can, but it didn't with me. It was more the fear of, I didn't want something horrible to happen to me at work and my kids to have to live through it. Um,
Did you
you
consider
know,
leaving the
just,
job?
yeah, I did a couple of times. I considered leaving the ISAR team,
Mhm.
but there was just something in me that just wanted to just keep going, really, just power on through. I've always had that attitude. Um,
Do you think that was a sensible decision?
yeah, I do now.
Okay.
I think what I didn't do well was I fought on my own for too long without saying anything,
Mhm.
and I took it as a weakness of mine. After like I
Well, that's
said,
what I mean. What I don't want is for people to hear your story and think, well, I should battle through because that's what Jim did.
yeah.
Because for some people, the best decision might be to leave. You've, you've,
Do you
you've
know?
done you've done enough. You've
Yeah,
done your bit.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Gore-Tex Professional Fabrics. Now, we all know the working environment of a firefighter is filled with challenges. We face serious risks on the job, such as heat exhaustion, burns, physical and mental stress, and we frequently come into contact with high levels of toxic chemicals. Now, I have been wearing Gore-Tex for nearly 2 decades on the front line, working in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents and in urban search and rescue environments. Gore-Tex have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services through their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceeds global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. Gore-Tex, going further together.
I talked to one of the first people I spoke to, was a real clever bloke I love, Paul Hinckley. We went out for a dog walk. I knew I had to talk to someone, and it was a mate, and he was a Gulf War veteran. And he was in our occupational health at the time. I didn't meet at work. We went out for a dog walk. And the thing that really stuck with me, what he said, one of the things was, do you know what? It's the hardest thing to do and the most bravest thing to do is stop and get help.
Yeah.
You know, he said, he even said it's a squaddy attitude to just carry on drinking and powering through and pretend to be all right.
Yeah.
It takes real bravery to go, I'm not right. This isn't normal. You know, and I think then it became a bit of a challenge to me. Well, I'm going to prove how brave I am. I'm going to say I'm not as strong as I'm pretending to be.
Yeah.
But I do believe, I think that there's one message I really want to come out of it is it doesn't define you. You know, if I'd have treated it properly from the start, I could have got 5-6 years of my life back. But now I've deployed since, and I've been underneath buildings since, and I've dragged out dead bodies since, and I've been absolutely fine with it, and I feel like a lot stronger about it. And I think the strength comes from I'm not scared of it anymore. You know, I accept it. I got a little bit upset talking about it here, but I'm not scared about being upset. And if that depression does come back, I'm going to deal with it properly. You know, I'll go back on antidepressants. I'll go and talk to counsellors. I'm not afraid to deal with it professionally and, you know, in a grown-up manner. And I know I'm going to beat it again.
EMDR training, or EMDR therapy, sorry. I've never done this. I've had a few people speak to me about it. So it's eye movement, decentralization, reprocessing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's about the brain almost being able to have another shot at refiling and reprocessing a memory, because a lot of trauma is your body is still, it's stuck in a loop.
Yeah.
It can't process or contextualize or make sense of this thing, so it's stuck in a self-perpetuating cycle, and you kind of need to find a way to reprocess it or refile it, isn't it?
Yeah, I think what I found, or what in my head, how it was working is he got me to talk about, you know, the real distressing things, and I was getting really upset when I was talking about them. He got me to talk about the sights, you know, the things, the smells, the things. It's all the things that could take me back to that place.
All the sensory triggers,
yeah. You know, and there's loads of things that can do it. But then what he'd done is those were the first couple of sessions, like the information finding on what the issues are that are affecting you, and I wasn't processing them. As soon as I started thinking about them, I'd be off.
Yeah.
And then what they do, the EMDR is there's a light backwards and forwards in front of your eyes, and you get to follow it with your eyes, and then starts getting you to think about all these things that really upset you and talk about them. And what I found was I'd be watching the light, concentrating on the light, and then it'd start describing a situation and things that I felt and smelt or where I was, and then my eyes would stop. Because as soon as I start going down that wormhole, my eyes would stop, and then I'd go, oh, back to the light. You know, and so it's almost like it distracts. It's like it does it a little bit and then it distracts you. And then when you get to that point where you're focusing more on being in that bad place, go back to the light. You know, concentrate on the light. And it sort of like creeps up on you. You know, it's like, we'll get you thinking about it, but not straight away in one big bulldozer. It's going to be a little tiny bit at a time, and you've always got something to take your mind off.
Yeah. And it's trying to find a smooth way for you to replay that without it causing you distress without your mind jumping all over the place and it's sort of
Yeah.
like developing into a big sort of tornado. You need to be able to pick it up, speak about it, put it back down, and let it sort of push it away into the ocean and let it drift off. And you go, yeah, I can re-enter that, and it doesn't send me off. Yeah,
so and it's worked. Like I said, I can describe it now. So it doesn't ruin my day. I'm fine. So to say it did, that took 6 months of EMDR therapy. And it was really hard at the time, but then towards the end, it's like it's exposure therapy. I can now think about it now without all the alarm bells flying off.
So you were able to go back, like you said, and you went back to operational service. You had some more deployments. You had Turkey, and Malawi, and what was it like going back out to some of those?
You know what? I think Turkey was only 2 years ago, so I'd like 28 years in the service and coming up to 20 years in the ISAR team by then, and I just felt so confident. I'd been to a couple of I think the big one. I remember back in 2016, I think it was, there was a Nechal's wall collapse. It was a horrific incident. There's a number of people that got killed in the scrapyard, and we had to dig those out. And I can distinctly remember at that time thinking, if I can do this again now, I've got over, the past, and I'm back here doing it again. It's not nice, it's horrible, but I'm not broken. I'm able to function. So I think we had a number. I think the last 6-7 years of my career, I just felt so confident. I felt so happy, and I felt even in horrible environments, I can overcome these. And if it does affect me, I'm happy. I'll go and get help.
Yeah, I know how to access the help. Yeah,
and I think New Zealand, I just felt, I tell you, in Turkey and Malawi, just felt so confident in my skin. I just felt really, really happy. As daft as it sounds,
no, not at all.
I think,
and you did carry out some big rescues out of that. I remember the 2-year-old girl from the pancake collapse.
So I was in
pretty big one.
Like Red 1. I was assigned as a command support embed for Team Red 1, which I was really proud. Every single member of that team was a legend. An absolute star. He's led by Jim Chaston, who's we mentioned
solid.
Known him for decades. Proper operational firefighter.
Jim retired now?
No, he's still. I saw him a couple of weeks ago. He's still in.
He can't have long left.
No, he's on the wind down, but he's not one to wind down.
No.
Yeah, but the family. Again, it'll be just a moment in my career. That will definitely when we're being bombarded by sites. And that the whole deployment was great in the way of Dave O'Neill, the overall team leader for UK ISAR, just let us off the lead. We went and done this assessment of Hatay, and it was chaos. We're the only team operating in there, and he was like, right, assign a sector, 4 teams, off you go. And there's some great team leaders. There's some big players on that team sheet. There's people that knew what they were doing. And I think Dave was brave enough and confident enough to go, off you go and you know what you got to do.
Dave's a really empowering leader. He's very much gets out of your way. He's what he doesn't know about it's not worth knowing. The courses. I'm actually seeing Dave tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's on the advisory board for the Blue Light show that we're involved in together.
Yeah.
And he's just fucking great. And when we're in meetings and when we're on the advisory board, he never beats people over the head with his knowledge and opinion. He'll let everyone else talk first. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not to make himself look stupid or anything like that, but just like he's not a gotcha person. He's not in there to tell you all of his stories and hit you with all of his knowledge and everything.
Yeah.
But like, if we all just shut up, he already knows everything that we've got to say and where this probably meeting's going towards the end of it already. But he's He's got a very quiet, reassuring confidence. He's like that gentle hand on the tiller. You know what I mean? He's leading.
You know,
He doesn't need to be the one standing in front with the medals and like the white helmet or anything like that. He's great, Davies.
So I think that was the start of a great deployment, is having a great leader, and he's one of my heroes. I'm really glad to go out there with him.
Yeah.
But we were working in our sector, and we had a couple of potential sites that we were working on, but then we got real credible intelligence from one of the local emergency workers that there were voices under a building, and it was outside of our sector, and there was no teams working there, and there was no one else could go there. There's no one will get there for another couple of days. And Jim Chaston made the decision, said, right, well, we'll go, we'll flag down a pickup truck. It's everything that you shouldn't do. You could pick this apart and say everything was wrong. But he took me and him went. We took Lindsay, the dog handler, Svalsky.
Tell you what, I've had Lindsay booked in about 4 times.
Yeah.
She's so busy, and then she keeps getting like OBEs and awards and stuff.
Yeah, she deserves them. Yeah.
I love to have Lindsay on. Lindsay and there's Mark and a few others. What they've done with the teams, and Victoria as well. We've had Victoria on the vet. Yeah. They've not that it was crap before, but what they've done over their span with the dog teams and professionalizing it, and they've really built out the rigor and capability of that national team. Incredible.
Completely, yeah. So
Lindsay's just absolute solid citizen. Love
her and Dave the dog have come, so that gives you a good sense. You're feeling warm and cozy already. Yeah, knowing that there's people coming. Amelia Weaver, the medic, came with us as well. Another, brilliant. There's no one else you want looking after you. And Mark, the structural engineer. The guy, Mark. Yeah.
Tell you what, again.
Yeah.
What he doesn't know, all the jobs he's done around London and managed, and he's such common sense as well.
Absolutely.
Again, if you want to get complex about legislation and bullshit, he knows it all, and he knows the structural capacity of this and how everything's designed. Yeah. But he's also he wants to swing a sledgehammer.
Right. Yeah. You're just worker. Absolutely. I could mention all the people in the team and everyone.
I know. There's loads of people we won't mention,
but those the people on this. I was the imposter on the back of that pickup truck. I was with these legends. I was trying to keep up with them really. But we drove to this site, and it was when we got there. Jim climbed up to the top and said, "I can hear them." Pretty much. And then being the command in bed, I sent the message through. And, it's rather than start all the admin, I said, right, this is a viable site. This is where we're working. Bring the team here. This is the location. This is your routine. This is basically what it is. This is what you need, to rapid informative, right? I sent off. And then I went and Jim had already called in by this stage, and he had ferreted in and found a way through this pancake collapse. And it was like a heavy set masonette block thing, probably about 3-4 floors. And he'd crawled in this gap and found a way through. And he was using small tools, and he was sort of like chopping through furniture in between layers, concrete floor layers. And I called in behind him just as he passed out a 2-year-old girl, and it took me tunic. It was a small, tight space. I took my tunic off and he put the girl on my tunic and then dragged her back.
Fucking hell.
We'd got her out, and I think I passed her on to Mark and said again, send another message, say, there's a couple more people in here. We can hear them. And then at that point, I went back in. Jim was knackered as well. I can remember he just red face, covered in sweat. He'd been grafting his row square, trying to get through. So we swapped over. And he came out, and he'd made a hole. So if you can imagine, we were in a little trench in between 2 big concrete slabs. And it's like you'd got to the end of the slab, and then you'd drop down about 8 inches, and then gone underneath the slab that was in front of you. So you had, a hole about 0.5 metre square. But then there was a channel that was probably no more than 8 inches. And it led into a bit of a void. So you're crawling along, then dropping flat and then pushing yourself, sort of like, I had to take my helmet off, and I had my face against the floor, and I could just about get my hands into the void that this family were in. But I didn't want to, I had my knees and my hips outside on the floor, on the level above, because I didn't want to commit, because that was my way back out, and I thought, if I can just grab hold of them here and pull them through behind me, I've got good purchase on my knees, I can pull them out. And then going through an interpreter who was outside. The mum came first, but she came feet first. So I was sort of like dragging her heels almost down this hole. And then to go over the step, I had to put her legs went over my shoulder, and I sort of like cupped the small of her back and then lifted her bum out, up and over the step and back out again. And so she came out, and then I went back in again to get the dad out. And then there was a lot of chatter going on through the radio, through an interpreter outside. And he was saying, I want to get my baby out first. And I was a bit like, I thought there was only 2 other people, and a bit more conversation lasting about 5 minutes. And again, this is while I got my head in the hole. And he said, yeah, my baby's, and I got it back saying the baby's dead. And I was a bit like, well, that's not very nice. Not what I wanted to hear at that point in time. But okay, sound, send him out. We'll take care of him. And then, like I said, I could only get my hands in, and he gave me 2 hands that were probably about the same size as mine, and I was a bit like, this isn't a baby. This is, it turned out to be a 10-year-old boy. And I sort of dragged him backwards by his hands, and then I got stuck. I got him so I could get to the step when I was going up to the level to get out. I could get his arms over, but I couldn't get his head and his shoulders. And I was like lying on top of him. I could lift his head up, but I couldn't drag his arms, couldn't drag him that way. And I just remember being so, like, it was a horrible thing, but I was so frustrated and so angry. And I was like, I've just blocked this hole up now. I'm not going to be able to get the dad out. And I was like, I was really annoyed with myself. I was like, I should have just got the live casualty out. And I think that's just with everything going in my head. I just didn't register. I was thinking, I was thinking along those lines. But then I was just up there for about 5 minutes trying to pull him up. And then the rest of the team arrived, and Big Bert from the South Wales team suddenly appeared on my backside. And I could, if I didn't have my head stuck in a hole, I'd have kissed him, because it was just what, when you want someone, you want the right person there to back you up. And he literally, between us, he reached his hands under my legs.
Strong as an ox is,
and lifted the shoulders up and out while I lifted this kid up, and he took the kid out. So I was so pleased then. And then I stayed in, and the dad came out. But there was just a moment. I mean, it was horrible. Poor that poor kid. But there's a moment when we came out, and it's like there's a whole family there that that we've got out, that no one would have got to. There's no one else working this area. They've been under there for 3 days. They weren't particularly well.
That's mad, isn't it?
And it was just like that. I say there's a brief moment of, well, that's something big. That's we've saved their lives. I don't want thanks.
Huge.
Don't ever see him, but the whole team. It's not just me or Jim.
No, of course. Yeah.
Everyone that got us there is like, that's ace. And then it's really quickly followed by, right, let's move on. That's enough of that. It's not all high fives and chest bumps. No one really cares, but there's probably another job. So let's go to that one now. And again, I don't think we've told that story much. So
I've not heard it before. Well, I'd heard it in passing, third version, fourth hand.
MSA are supporting us on today's podcast, and I chose to partner with them because I've been wearing this stuff for nearly 20 years, and they are the global leader in development, manufacture, and supply of incredible, safe products that really protect people, not just our communities out there, but also first responders, most importantly, all over the world. Get yourself over to MSA and have a look at it. The high performance protective clothing for emergency services responders. They also partner with us on the UK Pink Firefighters. It's because we love them. The helmets with the reflective visor, the F1XF, absolutely epic helmet. And not forgetting how they improve firefighter safety through their connectivity in the connected firefighter platform. MSA are always pushing the envelope, and it's a real privilege to be able to continue to grow our partnership together. So whether it's your PPE, your bunker gear, your helmets, your SCBA, your thermal imaging, your Luna, or your portable gas detection, both of us know that this equipment needs to work. It needs to be high quality, reliable, and dependable in the moment. And that's why I use MSA, because they know what's at stake.
Before that, we'd got a woman out. Lindsay, the dog handler, was digging her out with Sarah and Nimna from London. Those two girls. Yeah.
Again. What a legend.
You know, I think I was in the... They were digging with hand tools to get to a pillar to get this 60-year-old woman out. And I was in the compartment behind them waiting to receive the casualty and pass it out. But the pair of them, it's like Lindsay's the dog handler, you know. But she was in there straight away and digging away with a hammer and chisel. And then even after that family, we were involved in, I don't know if you heard about, there was a hotel collapse that took 19 hours.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
So we were the second team. I think Jim Davidson's team, another flipping legend, found the casualty and started the work, and were going at it for about 7 hours. And then we relieved them and came in and took over. And that just, it was the entire team, you know, crawling into a tunnel, going at it with small tools, like a pig at a tater, you know, just bashing the hell out of it. And like in slots of 15 minutes. So one person at the front, bashing away, all the people behind, funneling out all the debris and getting rid of it.
Yeah.
And then rotate, 15 minutes,
Graft.
go at it, then rotate, get another team in. So I think just about everyone on the UK team was involved in that rescue. Everyone had a hand to play. You know, and we got there's a man and a woman we got out after, I think it was 6 days after the earthquake, and after 19 hours of just going at it, hammer and tongs. So it's another real proud moment, you know, that the UK ISAR team should get so much credit for.
That's what I think, mate. It's one of the best kept secrets of the UK Fire and Rescue Service. And that's when I see a lot of, you know, different people rising through the ranks. If they've never been part of it or never experienced it, that's always my concern, is that it might fall by the wayside. You know, they hear a bitter person talk about it and go, oh, it's just the orange fucking brigade on jollies all the time.
You know, and I think we're very guilty of not...
Don't scream about it enough.
Yeah, I don't talk about this. Loads of people won't know about this.
There's thousands of ones. You know, like you've just said, Lindsay, Sarah, Jim Davidson, Chasterton, the fucking...
legends.
So many. Paul Courtney, you know, people like that. You know, I just wish we'd got to have them on. We've got to tell those stories.
But if I can go on, I'm sorry, mate. You've started.
Please.
Me.
No. Yeah.
But another real super proud moment in my career was the Malawi deployment. And it
totally
was
different incident.
Totally. And we dropped in. I went with the advanced team with Russ Gordon in charge. And again, there's a bunch of legends. Malcolm Russell was the doctor.
Malcolm is one of the ones, the cold weather training that he teaches and does. And his background, his military background as well.
Yeah.
Fucking, you're never going to get another one of them. You can't train them. You can't make them people.
I could listen to his stories forever. The things that he's done and his knowledge, and he's just so calm and so unassuming.
And massive explorations. He's done Everest. He's done a few. He's fucking just one of the most unassuming legends. Yeah,
and I mean, and I went with there was so there's Darryl from the base of operations.
Yeah,
I forgot his surname. Begins with P. But I'm terrible with names. There's Dave Hayward, who's from West Mids. He teaches UCC, USAR Coordination Cell.
Yeah.
You know, he teaches those courses across the world. Like, brilliant bloke. Lee Howell, and Malcolm Russell, and it's like we went as the advance party, right? And
Yeah.
I think
There was a
I'd
dart
gone.
team.
Sorry.
Is it dart team?
So it
that what's
was
going-
that sort of thing, yeah. So it was
Yeah.
that's what it was. It was a rapid assessment before the main team
Yeah.
goes. But everything just worked. Lee, Howell, and Russ Gordon stayed in the capital, waiting to sort out the arrival of the main team, and then the four of us went down south to the area affected. And again, it's like having that confidence to send your team off. You know what you're doing. Away you go. And I think Darryl and Dave Hayward, Ches, as we call him, had gone to a couple of meetings. They'd found an area that had been affected. They'd scrounged helicopter reconnaissance, so they got up in a helicopter, and me and Malcolm done a vehicle reconnaissance with the South African team. And we'd found everything we'd found. There's this area, Makanga, that's really badly affected. It's completely shut off. There's no fuel, no electricity. There's a whole area that's of villages that's about 20 kilometres that's people are stranded on with no food, no water, no nothing. But no one can get there. There's 2 bridges are down. There's no resupply. There's no communications. There's nothing. There's a World Food Programme centre that we haven't been able to get in touch with. And everyone was saying that's where you need to go, but no one's heard from it.
For people that don't recall, we keep saying it. This was Cyclone Freddy, wasn't it?
Yes,
Or about
that's
in
right.
Malawi. Yeah.
So it was there's the area.
Mass area flooding.
Absolutely.
There was like 1,200 deaths, wasn't there? There's massive.
Yeah. So it was
just isolated little pockets and communities that just couldn't get food, clean water, medical care, anything.
No access, no anything. So it was shut off. No one had heard. But we came up with a plan on the last night before the full team arrived, and it was me and Malcolm would do a recce and try to get to the World Food Programme place. And that meant driving down. There was 2 bridges that collapsed over rivers. And Russ said, he said, see if you can cross, do it safely. And like I said, I was a swiftwater rescue instructor and a powerboat instructor. I was like, Russ, I teach people how to cross rivers. Don't worry. And if anything happens to me, Malcolm can sort me out. If anything happens to Malcolm, he's knackered.
Well, that's the question, isn't it? Because it's like, can you safely cross? Well, I can get across. I'm going to aggressive swim. I'll get there. Could I take someone else across?
But then,
we'll get there. Yeah.
Could we get fuel across there?
It's a different question, You're almost framing it as a challenge now. You're like, I'll get across that. Don't worry about that.
In my head, I was thinking of a team challenge of setting up, dinghies and having them on push and pull use back and forth.
Yeah.
But, and I think we'd set this in the morning. We were going to set off, try and get to the World Food Programme, try and cross the first river, flag down a lift, try and get to the next bridge, try and cross that one and flag down a lift and try and get to the World Food Programme site. So we did. We set. I think Ross had a meeting at 9:00 in the morning, and he said he wants a feasibility report to see if we can cross the river for that meeting to see whether it's viable that we try it. And we set off. We crossed both rivers. We managed to flag down 2 cars. Well, flag down a car in the middle, who then rang his mate on the other side to come and pick us up. We'd got to the World Food Programme place. By then, Dave Hayward had scrounged 2 Super Pumas from the Royal Tanzanian Air Force to take all our kit.
Nice.
And Malcolm had sorted out a helicopter landing site right next to it. So it's like me and Malcolm knocked on the door and said, we're from the UK, do you want any help? And then at lunchtime, 2 helicopters came in with 3 boats and a full Type B rescue boat team. And, and it just, I think one of the big proud moment with me, for that, mate, we spent the next 4 days running sorties. It was a 12-kilometre route through flooded bushland, which was ever-changing, and you're navigating on instruments to get there. But we rescued about 250 people, I think, off those islands. And one of the great thing that really warmed me was we'd spent the day doing the recce with the South African boat rescue teams, and I was still on their WhatsApp group, and they started posting a load of stuff that was put about the UK teams that got into Makanga and affecting all these rescues. And they were so pissed off that they couldn't get there and the UK team could. You know, they were really upset about it. Said, how can they get in our backyard? How come they got to where else needed and we couldn't? And to me, it was like, no, that's the UK team, mate.
Master problem solvers, baby.
That's right,
that's
yeah.
it. We just don't speak about that enough.
We don't, you know, and I think it's sorry.
How have you come down from something like that? So as you started approaching retirement,
that's retired
it's
now.
a very, very difficult time. I know, but as you started approaching it, you must have felt some way about it, because you're like, it's like stepping off a speeding train. Some people don't nail that dismount very well.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I've been part of all this stuff. I've gone around the world. I've got all these skill sets, and a lot of them are still valuable. And like, people may request I know you're doing work with different organizations now outside of the job, but it's a bit of a death of an identity, isn't it?
Massively. It is. You know, but then I think I'm really fortunate to have. I'm really glad that I've done everything I've done, and I think I got to a point where I was like, right, I'm happy now. You know, as daft as it sounds, I was sort of like, that Malawi was my last deployment, and I knew that was going to be my last one, and I was sort of like, that's, you know, I've done my bit now. I'm happy. It's, I mean, I'm 53 now. I've been retired 2 months. It's a very physically demanding job. You know, it is. And I am getting that feeling that I'm battered and broken. It's hard work now. I can't do it as good as what I used to be able to, and I couldn't do it as good as people. You know, there's some real fit, capable operators nowadays. You know, and so I tore all the ligaments in my knee a year before retiring as well, and I couldn't get back to ops. And I'm sort of like, I knew it was hard work anyway. You know, even the training in ISAR is really hard work.
Should be.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I'm sort of realistic to say you can't do that forever. I couldn't.
Well, fair play to you for not letting your ego keep you in it, because some people will do that and do that, in my opinion.
Yeah, they will, but you've got to take that physical aspect of it seriously. You're not playing at it, and I'm not good enough anymore. You know, and that's I think I've got a good standard of fitness, but for a 53-year-old.
Oh fuck yeah. Yeah, mate, versus most of the 3-year-olds, you've done God knows how many marathons and ultra marathons and God, everything else you've done.
I'm happy with my fitness level. It's good, but it's not good enough to be frontline.
You're a different chapter.
Yeah, so
you're a different chapter of your life and your fitness, and now. And,
So I'm quite contented. I'm going to keep in touch with everyone. The big thing is keeping in touch with everyone. And having these old soldier get-togethers and swing the lantern and tell all the war stories, and I love that. It's always been about the team and the people.
But also, you can do so much of the stuff now. You are a baby, mate. You're not fucking 75, 80 years of age. When you look at all the opportunities you still have, you've pushed yourself with, you're a black belt triathlete, marathon runner.
Yeah.
I talk a lot now to close friends and stuff about my fitness pension. Do you know what I mean? And trying to make regular investments, because I still want to be climbing mountains with my kids when I'm 70.
Oh God, yeah.
And don't just assume that shit's going to happen, because it's not a guaranteed for any of us.
Yeah.
So you've got to be very intentional. You've got to swallow your ego.
Yeah.
And you're not gonna win a Hyrox or a British Firefighter Challenge necessarily when you're 50. You're not gonna do those things. But what's the best version of me today? Do you know what I mean? What's within my sphere of control and sphere of influence to still enable me to still keep living? This is so much that we forget in our careers, that there is life after the job. It's such an immersive thing for us to be involved in that we can think when it's over, we're not going on the station anymore. No one remembers us and all that sort of stuff. But you are your greatest asset.
Absolutely.
You're more than just the job you do. Do you know what I mean? That's just it means a lot, but it is just a badge and a collection of really cool, interesting people. Do you know what I mean? Firefighters, is a type of person. You are that for life. You're a master problem solver. And for people like we've mentioned, Dave O'Neill and yourself and loads of others, when their time comes to move on to other things, it's up to you what you want to do next. There's no more policies and procedures, and that level of freedom can be a little bit overwhelming for people. They like to be indoctrinated into a structure and a system and turn up at 7 a.m. and on parade and do this and do that.
Yeah. But
now the wheels are off. Do you know what I mean? And you can go and do all the shit you want to do. It's the same as we said right at the beginning, life is boring for boring people.
Yeah.
There's so much you could do. There really, really is, mate. And I love you grabbing it by the horns. And
I'm going to
just
make the most
go and play in the sandpit,
Absolutely.
Thank you for all your time today, mate. I'd love to come back on and have another follow-up chat because I'm sure you'll listen back to this and you'll be like, oh, I can't believe we didn't talk about this or we didn't talk about that. And people won't know we've taken a few breaks during our chat today. I had a car I had to go and sort out, and hopefully the internet gremlins haven't interrupted our conversations too much. But if people want to reach out to you, I'm going to drop probably a LinkedIn thing. I'm not going to put a personal email or anything in there, but there will be a lot of organizations. This is not a sales pitch, and it's not what you've come on here for. And you won't say it, so I will. But not just for you, but for so many people that leave the fire and rescue service, they've got a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of skills. You cannot buy that. And these people are on the market, and they're always up for an adventure. So if you want to bring these skill sets into your organization, just fucking come and have a look, because these people have got things. You're the sort of person, I said it right at the beginning before we started recording, most people will never write a book. They won't put their CV on a website or something like that. But the stuff that most people on podcasts talk about doing or pretend they've done, people in the fire and rescue service have actually done. They just don't scream and shout about it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It's not
we're not trying to, one of the things that you've done, people will write an entire book about and try and over-egg the custard and find themselves on fucking SAS Who Dares Wins or something.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Whereas these people, yourself, Jim, Lindsay, everybody else, Russ, all of these people, they've got a buffet of experiences that will lend themselves to organizations that are trying to prepare themselves for these types of disasters. So I know you're a busy egg, and I know you're investing time in your family, which you absolutely should, and your children before they get bored of you. But I've absolutely loved chatting to you today, brother. It's a conversation we've wanted to get in the diary for a little while, and I really, really do appreciate it, mate.
No, Pete. It's been a reflection. It's like the end of my career and a reflection. I've absolutely loved it, and like I said,
it's cathartic. It's weird.
And it does feel like I don't talk about this sort of stuff, and it's talking to you about it.
Awesome,
thanks a lot.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll get something else in the diary, maybe in 12 months or 18 months time or something like that, mate. But send my love to the family, and I'll speak to you soon, brother.
Take it easy, mate. I'll see you in a bit.
Well, that's it for today, folks. Hope you took a lot away from that episode. We started the Firefighters podcast to develop, inspire, connect, motivate, represent, and most importantly, celebrate the world of incredible emergency services operators and the wider sector through this series of wide-ranging conversations. We really love creating this podcast and bringing it to so many people. Did you know you can also find these on YouTube? We do a lot of video podcasts now. You can head over to our YouTube page and follow, subscribe there. And as a final ask from us, whatever platform you're on, please rate the podcast. It really helps us as a key performance indicator to reach more and more people. I've been your host, Pete Wakefield. This has been the Firefighters Podcast. And wherever you are in the world, please stay safe, be happy, live with intention, and where possible, please remember and support your firefighters and first responders. I'll see you next time.